The grain harvester broke down again, black smoke pouring from its engine as Emma Walsh kicked the metal beast in frustration. Sweat dripped down her face under the twin suns of New Haven, and the endless fields of golden wheat stretched toward the horizon like a sea of amber waves. Her family had been farming this land for 3 generations, but lately everything seemed to be falling apart at once. Emma wiped her hands on her work pants and grabbed the toolkit from the harvester's storage compartment. At 17, she could fix most farm equipment better than the mechanics in town, a skill her father Robert had taught her since she could hold a wrench. The Walsh farm was one of the smaller operations on New Haven, growing basic crops to feed the growing human colonies scattered across this agricultural world. As she worked on the engine, a strange sound caught her attention. It was faint at first like a kitten mewing, but somehow different. Emma looked up from the machinery and listened carefully. The sound came again, weaker this time, from somewhere near the grain storage silos about 200 meters away. Curiosity won over. Her need to fix the harvester. Emma jogged across the field, her boots crunching on the dry soil. The sound grew clearer as she approached the silos, and what she heard made her heart skip. It was definitely some kind of animal in distress, but unlike anything she had ever heard before. Behind the largest silo, partially hidden by a pile of empty fertilizer bags, Emma found the source of the noise. Her breath caught in her throat as she stared at the creature before her. It was about the size of a house cat, but covered in scales that shimmered with an oily rainbow pattern. Even though they were dull and lifeless looking, the creature had 4 legs, 2 small wing-like appendages folded against its back, and a long tail that ended in a diamond-shaped tip. Emma had never seen anything like it in her life, but she knew exactly what she was looking at. It was a baby dragon. The little creature was clearly dying. Its breathing was shallow and rapid, its eyes were half closed, and Emma could see its ribs through the thin scales. Dried blood crusted around several wounds on its body, and one of its wings appeared to be broken. As Emma knelt down beside it, the dragon opened its eyes fully for the first time. They were the most beautiful shade of electric blue she had ever seen, and they seemed to look directly into her soul. The dragon tried to lift its head but was too weak. It made another soft mewing sound, and Emma felt something strange in her mind. It was not quite a voice, but more like an emotion or feeling that did not belong to her. The creature was asking for help. Emma looked around quickly to make sure no one was watching, then gently scooped the dragon into her arms. It weighed almost nothing, and its scales felt warm despite its obvious sickness. The dragon did not struggle or try to bite her. Instead, it seemed to relax slightly in her arms, and Emma felt that strange mental touch again. This time it felt like gratitude. She carried the dragon to the old storage shed behind the house where her father kept spare parts and tools. Emma had turned part of the shed into her own workshop years ago, and she knew she could hide the creature there while she figured out what to do. She made a nest out of old blankets in a wooden crate and gently placed the dragon inside. The dragon's eyes followed her every movement as she worked. Emma found a small bowl and filled it with water from the shed's sink. The dragon was too weak to lift its head to drink, so Emma dipped her finger in the water and let drops fall onto the creature's mouth. The dragon's tongue, which was surprisingly long and thin, darted out to catch the water drops. Emma knew she needed to get food for the dragon, but she had no idea what it might eat. She decided to start with what they had plenty of on the farm. She grabbed a handful of grain from one of the storage bins and tried to feed it to the dragon. The creature sniffed at the grain but did not seem interested. Next, Emma tried some of the protein pellets they fed to their chickens. The dragon showed more interest in these, managing to eat a few before exhaustion overtook it again. Emma also brought some milk from their dairy cow, and the dragon seemed to like this better than anything else. As evening approached, Emma heard her father calling her name from the house. She quickly checked on the dragon, which appeared to be sleeping peacefully, and locked the shed before running to the house for dinner. During the meal, Emma could hardly concentrate on the conversation. Her father was talking about the corporate inspectors who had been asking questions around the colony about unusual crop yields and strange energy readings. Her mother was worried about the increasing reports of space pirates in the outer systems. All Emma could think about was the tiny dragon sleeping in her shed. That night, Emma snuck back to the shed with a flashlight and more food. The dragon was awake and seemed slightly stronger. It managed to drink more milk and eat several protein pellets. As Emma sat beside the crate, she felt that mental touch again, stronger this time. She could sense the dragon's emotions more clearly now. Fear, loneliness, but also hope and growing trust. Over the next few days, Emma developed a routine. She would do her normal farm work during the day, but spend every free moment caring for the dragon. She brought it different types of food to see what it preferred, changed its blankets daily, and gradually nursed it back to health. The dragon grew stronger quickly. By the end of the first week, it was able to stand and walk around the crate. Emma noticed that whenever the dragon was content, tiny sparks of electricity would dance between its scales. This gave her an idea for a name. She started calling the dragon Spark. Spark seemed to understand that Emma had named him. The mental connection between them grew stronger each day, and Emma began to understand more complex emotions and even simple concepts from the dragon. Spark was incredibly intelligent, much more so than any animal Emma had ever known. By the second week, Spark was eating heartily and had grown noticeably larger. Emma had to find a bigger container for him to sleep in. She also noticed something strange happening to the plants near the shed. The grass around the building was growing thicker and greener than anywhere else on the farm. Even the vegetable garden her mother kept nearby was producing unusually large and healthy plants. Emma realized that Spark's presence was somehow affecting the plant life around him. This discovery both excited and worried her. If Spark could make plants grow better, it could be incredibly valuable to their farm, but it also meant that someone might eventually notice the unusual growth patterns and start asking questions. Emma knew she could not keep Spark secret forever, but she was not ready to tell anyone about him yet. She needed to learn more about what kind of creature he was and what he might be capable of as he grew larger and stronger. The old computer in the town library flickered as Emma scrolled through database after database, searching for any information about creatures that looked like Spark. 3 months had passed since she found the baby dragon, and he had grown from the size of a house cat to roughly the size of a large dog. His scales now gleamed with brilliant colors that shifted from deep purple to electric blue depending on the light, and the tiny sparks that had given him his name had developed into impressive displays of bioelectricity when he was happy or excited. Emma had become an expert at sneaking around her own farm. Every morning before dawn, she would slip out to the expanded hiding place she had built for Spark in the old root cellar beneath the storage shed. The underground space was perfect because it was cool, dark, and completely hidden from view. She had installed better ventilation and even run a secret power line from the main house so Spark could have proper lighting. The mental connection between Emma and Spark had grown incredibly strong over the past months. They could now share complex thoughts and emotions, and Emma was beginning to understand that Spark was far more intelligent than any human had ever imagined a dragon could be. He understood every word she spoke to him and could communicate back through a combination of mental impressions, body language, and a series of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that Emma was slowly learning to interpret. But it was the effect Spark had on the farm that truly amazed Emma. The Walsh property was producing crops unlike anything seen on New Haven before. Their wheat fields were yielding 3 times the normal harvest. The corn grew taller and fuller than it had any right to. Even the vegetables in her mother's garden had become the talk of the local farmers' market, with tomatoes the size of melons and carrots that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. Emma had figured out that Spark's bioelectric field somehow supercharged the soil around him. Wherever he spent time, the earth became rich and dark, full of nutrients that made plants grow with incredible vigor. Emma had started taking Spark on secret nighttime walks through different sections of the farm, and within days those areas would explode with new growth. Her father Robert was both thrilled and puzzled by their sudden agricultural success. He kept checking and rechecking their soil samples, trying to figure out what had changed. Emma's mother Beth was equally amazed by her garden's transformation, though she credited it to a new fertilizer blend she had been experimenting with. Problem was that their success was drawing attention. Emma learned this the hard way when she walked into the farmhouse kitchen one morning to find two strangers in corporate uniforms sitting at the kitchen table with her parents. The woman, who introduced herself as Inspector Davis from Colonial Agricultural Services, was asking detailed questions about their farming methods, soil treatments, and crop rotation schedules. The man with her, Inspector Wong, was taking notes on a tablet and occasionally asking about their equipment and seed suppliers. Emma tried to act casual as she poured herself a glass of juice, but she could feel their eyes on her as they continued their questions. "The thing is, Mr. Walsh," Inspector Davis was saying, "your farm's production numbers are so far outside normal ranges that our computers flagged them as potentially fraudulent. We're not accusing you of anything, but we need to understand how you're achieving these results." Robert spread his hands helplessly. "I wish I knew myself. We're using the same methods we've always used, maybe with a bit more care and attention than before. My daughter here has been helping more with the farming, and she's got good instincts for this work." Inspector Wong looked up from his tablet. "Has there been any unusual activity in this area? Strange weather patterns, unusual animal behavior, equipment malfunctions that might indicate electromagnetic interference?" Emma's heart stopped. Spark's electrical discharges had been getting stronger as he grew, and she had noticed that some of their electronic equipment occasionally glitched. When he was excited or agitated, last week he had accidentally shorted out her tablet when she had shown him pictures of dragons from Earth's ancient mythology. "Nothing unusual that I can think of," Emma said carefully. "Though the harvester has been acting up lately. Keeps stalling out for no reason." The inspectors exchanged glances. Inspector Davis made a note. "We'd like to take some soil samples from various locations around your property, if that's all right. Also, we'll need to run some tests on your irrigation system and check for any unusual energy signatures." Emma spent the rest of that day in a panic. She managed to warn Spark telepathically to stay hidden and keep his electrical activity to a minimum. But she knew it was only a matter of time before someone discovered him if the inspectors kept digging. That evening, after the inspectors had left with their samples, Emma sat in the root cellar with Spark and tried to figure out what to do. The dragon had grown even more magnificent over the past months. His wings, which had been tiny and broken when she found him, were now large enough that Emma suspected he might be able to fly if he tried. His intelligence continued to amaze her daily. He had learned to understand written words by watching over Emma's shoulder as she read, and he could solve complex puzzles that Emma brought him from her old school textbooks. Through their mental link, Emma had learned fragments of Spark's past. He remembered being part of a group, a family of creatures like himself. There had been a long journey through space, cramped and frightening, followed by terrible violence. His family had been scattered, hurt, possibly killed. Spark's memories of these events were confused and traumatic, but Emma understood that he was likely the only survivor of whatever had happened to his people. She had also been researching dragon-like creatures in the colonial databases, and what she found was disturbing. There were scattered reports throughout human space of creatures called astral drakes, described as highly intelligent reptilian beings with the ability to manipulate energy and enhance biological processes. The reports were always the same. The drakes had been hunted to extinction by various alien species who prized their scales for armor and their bioelectric organs for advanced technology. According to the databases, no living astral drake had been confirmed in over 50 years. Most xenobiologists believed the species was completely extinct. If Spark truly was an astral drake, he was quite possibly the last of his kind. This knowledge made Emma even more protective of her friend. She could not let anyone take him away or hurt him, but she also realized that she could not keep him hidden forever. Spark was growing larger by the week, and his effects on the farm were becoming impossible to conceal. One night, as Emma sat reading to Spark from a book about Earth's ancient dragons, she felt a new emotion through their connection. Spark was staring out the small window of the root cellar at the stars visible in the night sky, and Emma could sense a deep longing in him, a calling towards something far away in space. When she asked him about it, Spark projected images into her mind. She saw vast ships shaped like metallic dragons sailing between stars. saw creatures like Spark but much larger living in harmony with advanced technology, saw worlds where dragons and other species worked together to build wonders beyond imagination. But mixed with these beautiful visions were darker ones. Ships burning in space, dragons falling from the sky, hunters with weapons designed specifically to kill his kind. Spark's people had been scattered across the galaxy, and he did not know if any others had survived. Emma hugged the dragon gently, being careful of his now sharp claws and the electrical field that constantly hummed around his scales. Through their bond, she promised him that she would help him find his family no matter what it took. She had no idea that her promise would be tested much sooner than she expected. The next morning, Emma woke to find Spark in a state of extreme agitation. His scales were flickering with constant electrical discharge, and waves of anxiety and excitement were flooding through their mental connection. When Emma tried to calm him, Spark projected a single overwhelming impression into her mind. Something was coming. Something big, something that had been searching for him across the galaxy was finally getting close. Emma looked up at the morning sky through the root cellar window, wondering if their quiet life on the farm was about to change forever. The electromagnetic pulse hit the farm at exactly 3 p.m, and every piece of electronic equipment within a kilometer radius died instantly. Emma was helping her father repair a fence when the wave rolled over them like invisible thunder, and she immediately knew it had come from Spark. She ran toward the root cellar as her father stood confused among the smoking remains of their fence repair tools. The tablet he had been using to check livestock records was completely fried, its screen cracked and dark. In the distance, Emma could see their neighbors emerging from their houses, looking around in bewilderment as their vehicles and equipment failed all at once. Emma found Spark in the throes of what could only be described as a seizure. His entire body was crackling with electrical energy, and waves of panic and overwhelming emotion were pouring through their mental connection so intensely that Emma could barely think straight. She tried to approach him, but the electrical field around his body was so strong that it made her hair stand on end and sent painful shocks up her arms. Through the chaos of his mental projections, Emma caught fragments of what Spark was experiencing. Something massive was approaching New Haven from space, something that resonated with every cell in Spark's body. He was responding to it like a tuning fork responding to a matching frequency, and his young body could not handle the intensity of the connection. Emma managed to get close enough to touch Spark's snout, ignoring the electrical shocks that made her muscles spasm. The moment her skin made contact with his scales, their mental bond stabilized and she was able to help him focus and calm down. The electrical discharge slowly decreased to manageable levels, though Spark continued to tremble with anticipation. Through their connection, Emma felt what Spark was feeling. Something was calling to him from the sky, something familiar and powerful and beloved. After months of loneliness and confusion, Spark was finally sensing one of his own kind. Emma looked up through the root cellar window at the afternoon sky of New Haven. At first, she saw nothing unusual. The twin suns were shining brightly, and a few wispy clouds drifted across the blue expanse. But as she watched, a dark spot appeared high above, growing larger by the minute. At first, it looked like a large aircraft or perhaps a small asteroid. But as it descended through the atmosphere, Emma realized she was looking at something unlike any human ship she had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and its shape was unmistakably organic. It looked like a dragon. The ship was clearly alive, or at least partially biological. Its surface rippled and shifted like skin, and Emma could see what looked like scales covering its hull. Massive wings that seemed to be part metal and part membrane spread out from its sides, and its head was elongated and serpentine, with eyes that glowed like stars. As the creature ship descended, Emma felt the ground beneath her feet vibrating with a deep, thrumming sound that seemed to come from inside the earth itself. Spark was responding to this sound with increasing excitement, his mental projections now filled with joy and relief rather than panic. The ship landed in the middle of the Walsh family's largest wheat field, with surprising gentleness for something so massive. The impact still sent tremors through the ground and flattened about an acre of crops, but Emma could sense that the landing was carefully controlled to minimize damage. Emma's parents came running from the farmhouse, along with several neighbors who had seen the ship descending. Everyone stopped at the edge of the field, too amazed and terrified to get any closer to the incredible sight before them. The ship's surface began to change. Sections of what Emma had thought was solid hull flowing like liquid and opening to reveal an interior that glowed with soft organic light. From this opening emerged a figure that made Spark look like a tiny house cat by comparison. The dragon that stepped onto New Haven soil was magnificent beyond anything Emma could have imagined. She was easily the size of a small building with scales that shifted through every color of the spectrum as she moved. Her wings, when fully extended, cast shadows that covered half the field. But what struck Emma most was how obviously ancient and intelligent she appeared. This was no wild animal, but a being of incredible wisdom and power. The great dragon's eyes swept across the assembled humans with an intelligence that was both alien and completely recognizable. When her gaze found Emma, standing at the edge of the root cellar entrance, those eyes seemed to see directly into her soul. Emma felt a new presence in her mind, vastly more powerful than Spark's gentle mental touch. The presence was overwhelming at first, like trying to contain an ocean in a teacup, but it quickly adjusted its intensity to something Emma could handle. The voice that spoke in Emma's mind was unmistakably female, ancient, and filled with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and barely contained emotional power. "I am Pyrith the Ancient, last of the Elder Council, keeper of the bloodlines, and mother to the young one you have protected. I have searched across 7 star systems and 43 worlds to find my child. You have saved the future of our entire species, young human." Emma felt her knees go weak. She looked down at Spark, who had emerged from the root cellar and was making sounds of pure joy as he looked at the massive dragon. Even from a distance, Emma could see the family resemblance. They had the same electric blue eyes, the same graceful way of moving, the same aura of controlled power. Pyrith's mental voice continued, now addressing Spark as well as Emma. "My child, you have grown strong and beautiful. The human has cared for you well, better than I dared hope when I felt your life force flickering so faintly before it disappeared from my awareness. I feared you had joined your siblings in the void." Emma felt a stab of sadness through the connection. Spark projected images of other young dragons, his brothers and sisters, and Emma understood that they had not survived whatever disaster had brought Spark to New Haven alone and wounded. Pyrith seemed to sense the direction of Emma's thoughts. "The Void Hunters found our colony ship 3 months ago. We had thought we were safe in the deep space between galaxies, but they tracked us using technology stolen from our own people. My children were scattered across space when our ship was attacked. I have searched for each of them, but Spark is the only one I have found alive." Emma's parents and the other humans were keeping their distance, clearly overwhelmed by what they were witnessing. Emma could hear her father trying to use his communicator to contact the colonial authorities, but of course nothing electronic was working after Spark's earlier electromagnetic pulse. "I must speak with your people," Pyrith said to Emma. "There are things they must understand about my child and about what is coming. The Void Hunters who destroyed our colony are the same species that has been systematically eliminating every intelligent race in this section of the galaxy. They will come for humanity eventually, and when they do, you will need allies who understand their methods." Emma found her voice at last. "Are you saying that Spark isn't just any dragon? He's special somehow?" "My child is the last young male of our species. The genetic codes he carries are essential for the survival of the astral drakes. Without him, our people will become extinct within this generation. But more than that, he has shown abilities that none of our kind have possessed for centuries. His connection with growing things, his bioelectrical control, his rapid development, these are signs that he may carry the genetic memory of our most ancient ancestors." Emma looked at Spark, who was now the size of a small horse and still growing. "He's been helping our crops grow. The whole farm has been producing 3 times the normal harvest since I found him." "Yes," Pyrith replied. "Our people were once the gardeners of the galaxy, working with other species to transform dead worlds into gardens of life. This ability was thought lost, but it lives on in my son. This makes him incredibly valuable to many species, and incredibly dangerous to those who profit from scarcity and death. Emma felt a chill of understanding. The Void Hunters. They don't just kill for territory, do they? They kill anyone who might make their victims stronger or more independent. You understand. Quickly, young one. This is why I must make a formal claim for the debt your people owe us for caring for my child. By the ancient laws that govern all civilized species, those who preserve the life of another's offspring are entitled to compensation. But more importantly, this debt creates a legal bond that will protect both our peoples from those who would destroy us separately. As Pyrath spoke, more dragons began emerging from the bioship. They were smaller than Pyrath but still impressive, and Emma realized that Spark's mother had not been traveling alone. The astral drakes were not extinct. They were just reduced to a small group of survivors. But even as Emma felt hope rising in her chest, she could sense from Pyrath's emotional undercurrent that the situation was far more complicated and dangerous than it appeared. The great dragon's next words confirmed Emma's growing apprehension. I bring not just a claim for debt, young human, but also a warning. The Void Hunters have been tracking my ship's energy signature. They will arrive in the system within 7 of your days. If your people cannot provide what we need to defend ourselves and escape to safety, then both our species will share the same fate as the 43 other civilizations the Hunters have exterminated in the past decade. Emma looked around at her parents, her neighbors, and the peaceful farming community that had been her entire world. In the space of a few hours, everything had changed. Spark was no longer her secret friend, but the key to the survival of an entire species. And humanity was apparently about to face an enemy that had destroyed dozens of other civilizations. The quiet farm girl who had found a wounded baby dragon 3 months ago was about to become the bridge between two species in the fight for their survival. The colonial governor's emergency meeting was held in the largest building on New Haven, the community center that usually hosted harvest festivals and school plays. Emma sat between her parents in the packed room, watching as Governor Mitchell tried to maintain order among 300 frightened colonists who had just learned that their quiet farming world was about to become the center of an interspecies crisis. Pyrath had been waiting outside the building for 2 hours, her massive form coiled in the town square like a living monument. She had politely declined to enter the building, explaining that her presence might make the humans too uncomfortable to think clearly. Emma could still feel the ancient dragon's mind touching hers occasionally, offering reassurance and patience while the humans tried to process what was happening to their world. Governor Mitchell was a practical man who had spent 30 years managing agricultural colonies, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for negotiating with dragons. He kept glancing nervously at the windows, where Pyrath's shadow fell across the building like a reminder of powers beyond human understanding. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, the governor said, reading from notes his aide had taken during the initial contact. This dragon claims that young Emma Walsh has been caring for her offspring for 3 months, and that this creates some kind of legal debt that humanity must pay? Emma's father, Robert, stood up from his seat. Governor, with respect, this isn't about legal debt. That dragon saved our lives when she could have just taken her child and left. She's warning us about these Void Hunters because she wants to help us survive. Help us survive by demanding tribute that could bankrupt our entire colony, responded Councilmember Hayes, a woman who managed the colony's finances. Have you seen what she's asking for? 10,000 tons of rare earth minerals that we don't even have. Advanced terraforming technology that we'd have to buy from Earth at prices we can't afford. Star charts to 3 uninhabited worlds, which means giving up potential colony sites. And she wants Emma as some kind of permanent ambassador, which essentially means taking a human child away from her family. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as the entire room turned to look at her. She had not asked to become the center of an interspecies diplomatic crisis, but somehow that was exactly what had happened. Councilmember Torres raised his hand. What happens if we refuse? Does the dragon just leave, or are we looking at some kind of retaliation? Governor Mitchell consulted his notes again. According to what she told us, if we refuse her terms, she'll take her child and leave the system immediately. The problem is that she also says these Void Hunters will arrive within the week regardless of what we decide. If the dragons leave, we'll face this threat alone. And if they stay? Asked Dr. Williams, the colony's chief medical officer. Then we become part of whatever fight is coming, with dragons as our allies. Emma could not stay silent any longer. She stood up, ignoring her mother's attempt to pull her back into her seat. You're all talking about this like Pyrith is trying to cheat us or hurt us, but she's not. She's trying to save her people and ours at the same time. Emma, sweetie, you don't understand the bigger picture, Governor Mitchell said gently. These demands would require us to contact Earth, request emergency funding and resources, and essentially mortgage our colony's future for the next 50 years. We're talking about economic obligations that would affect every family on New Haven. Emma felt frustration building in her chest. Through her connection with Spark, she could sense that Pyrith was growing impatient with the human tendency to focus on immediate costs while ignoring long-term survival. What's our future worth if we're all dead in a week? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the community center flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the room in red light, but everyone understood what had happened. Pyrith was demonstrating her power. The dragon's mental voice reached everyone in the room simultaneously, a feat that left many of the colonists gasping in shock. Emma realized that Pyrith had been holding back during their private conversations, using only a fraction of her true, telepathic ability. Forgive the interruption, but time grows short, and your people seem to be missing critical information that affects your decision. Governor Mitchell found his voice first. What information? The Void Hunters have accelerated their approach. My ship's sensors detect their fleet at the edge of your star system. They will arrive in 3 days, not 7. Also, you are debating the cost of materials and technology that your species already possesses but has not yet learned to use properly. Emma felt confusion from the assembled humans. What do you mean? Your agricultural world contains more rare earth minerals than my people need. They lie beneath your fields, invisible to your current scanning technology, but easily accessible with proper bioenhancement techniques. The terraforming technology you think you must purchase from Earth already exists in the ecosystem my child has created around your farm, and the star charts I require show systems that your own space agencies have already identified, but dismissed as unsuitable for human colonization. Council Member Hayes stood up. Are you saying we already have everything you're asking for? You have the raw materials and the natural processes. What you lack is the knowledge to recognize and use them properly. This is what my people offer in exchange for caring for my child. Not tribute, but partnership. Not conquest, but cooperation. Emma felt her heart racing as she began to understand what Pyrith was really offering. The dragon continued her explanation. The debt of nurturing is not a burden but a bond. By accepting responsibility for it, your species gains the right to call upon the astral drakes for protection and assistance. More importantly, it establishes your legal standing as a protected species under the ancient laws that govern civilized interaction between starfaring peoples. Dr. Williams raised her hand. What exactly does that mean in practical terms? It means that when the Void Hunters arrive, they cannot simply destroy you, as they have destroyed so many others. They must first challenge our claim to protect you, which requires formal combat under rules that limit their technological advantages. It also means that other species who respect the ancient laws will recognize humanity as legitimate equals rather than primitive targets for exploitation. Emma could see the mood in the room beginning to shift as people realized they were not being threatened, but offered an alliance. Governor Mitchell leaned forward in his chair. And the request for Emma to serve as ambassador? The bond between my child and your daughter has created a communication bridge between our species that is unprecedented in our history. Emma Walsh has learned to think and feel in ways that allow her to understand both human and astral drake perspectives simultaneously. This makes her invaluable as a translator and mediator, but also means she is the only human capable of coordinating our joint defense against the Void Hunters. Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. What would that mean for me personally? It means you would learn to live in both worlds, human and dragon. You would spend time with my people learning our history, our technology, and our ways of understanding the universe. But you would remain human, and you would return to your family regularly. The bond between species mates is not imprisonment, but expansion. Robert Walsh stood up. And if we refuse? If we decide this is too much risk for our people? Pyrath's mental voice carried a note of sadness. Then my child and I will leave immediately, and you will face the Void Hunters with only your current technology and knowledge. I estimate that your colony has a 15% chance of survival under those circumstances. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Emma could feel the fear and uncertainty radiating from the assembled colonists, but also a growing sense of determination. These were people who had left Earth to build new lives on an alien world. They understood better than most that survival sometimes required taking calculated risks. Governor Mitchell called for a brief recess so the council could deliberate privately. As the crowd broke up into smaller discussion groups, Emma slipped outside to speak with Pyrath directly. The great dragon was waiting in the town square, her scales glowing softly in the evening light. Spark was with her, and Emma was amazed to see how much he had grown just in the past few hours. He was now the size of a small elephant, though, still clearly young and playful compared to his ancient mother. You're asking them to trust you with their entire future, Emma said as she approached. I am asking them to choose partnership over isolation, Pyrath replied. The universe is vast and dangerous, full of species that view others as either resources to be exploited or threats to be eliminated. But it also contains peoples like yours and mine, who have the capacity to build something greater together than either could achieve alone. Emma reached out to touch Spark's snout, marveling at how warm and solid he felt. What happens if they say yes? Then we begin the most important alliance in the history of both our species, and we prepare to show the Void Hunters that some things in this galaxy are worth fighting for. The answer came at dawn, delivered not by the Colonial Council but by Emma herself. She walked across the dew-covered town square to where Pyrath waited, carrying a tablet containing the colony's official response, and something far more important, a counterproposal that could change the fate of both species. Pyrath's great head turned toward Emma as she approached, those ancient eyes reflecting the light of New Haven's twin suns. Spark bounded over to greet Emma with the enthusiasm of a puppy, though he now stood taller than her at the shoulder, and his playful electrical discharges could power half the colony. The council spent all night debating, Emma said, setting down the tablet and placing her hand on Spark's warm scales. Governor Mitchell wanted to accept your terms exactly as you offered them. Council member Hayes wanted to reject everything and try to evacuate the planet before the Void Hunters arrive. Dr. Williams suggested we try to negotiate for more time. And what did you suggest? Pyrath asked, though Emma could sense through their mental connection that the ancient dragon already knew the answer. I told them they were thinking too small. Emma pulled up the documents she had prepared during the long night of discussion. Your people have been running and hiding for decades trying to preserve the last remnants of Astral Drake civilization, while the Void Hunters pick off every intelligent species in the galaxy one by one. Our people have been struggling to build colonies and defend ourselves with technology that's barely adequate for basic survival. She gestured toward Spark, whose presence had transformed not just the Walsh farm, but the entire agricultural output of New Haven. But together, we've already accomplished something neither species could do alone. In 3 months, Spark has turned a failing farm into the most productive agricultural site in the sector. What could we accomplish in 3 years? In 3 decades? Pyrath's mental voice carried a note of intrigue. Continue. Emma took a deep breath and launched into the proposal that had kept her awake all night. Instead of a debt payment, we offer a full partnership. Humanity provides worlds, resources, and agricultural support for Astral Drake colonies. In return, dragons share their bioenhancement abilities, their advanced knowledge, and their protection against threats like the Void Hunters. This is not so different from what I proposed, Pyrath observed. The difference is scale, Emma replied. You're thinking about saving a handful of dragons and maybe protecting one human colony. I'm talking about building an alliance that could eventually span the entire galaxy. Humans are good at building things and organizing resources. Dragons are good at enhancing life and defending against threats. Together, we could offer other species something that neither the Void Hunters nor anyone else can provide: security and prosperity at the same time. Emma pulled up a star chart on her tablet. New Haven is just the beginning. We establish the first mixed human-dragon colony here, prove that the partnership works, then expand to other systems. Within a generation, we could have dozens of worlds where both species live and work together. And the Void Hunters? Pyrith asked. We stop running from them and start hunting them instead. The ancient dragon's surprise rippled through their mental connection. You would go on the offensive against a species that has destroyed 43 civilizations? Emma nodded, feeling more confident as she outlined the strategy that had crystallized in her mind during the night. The Void Hunters succeed because they attack isolated species that have no allies and no advance warning. They've never faced a coordinated defense by multiple species working together with combined technology and tactics. She gestured toward the bioship that had brought Pyrith to New Haven. Your ships are living beings that can adapt and heal themselves in ways that mechanical ships cannot. Our manufacturing capabilities can produce equipment and supplies in quantities that small groups of survivors cannot match. Combine dragon flexibility with human industrial capacity and we get something entirely new. Spark made a series of harmonious sounds that Emma had learned meant agreement and excitement. Through their bond, she could sense his eagerness to be part of something larger than just survival. There is another consideration, Pyrith said carefully. For this partnership to work, there would need to be permanent bonds between our species. Not just political alliances, but personal connections like the one you share with my child. Emma had been expecting this. You mean more humans would need to bond with dragons the way Spark and I have bonded? Yes. The telepathic connection allows for coordination and understanding that would be impossible through normal communication. But such bonds change both partners permanently. Humans who bond with dragons develop enhanced empathy, expanded lifespans, and the ability to sense bioelectric fields. Dragons who bond with humans gain increased problem-solving abilities, better understanding of technology, and stronger connections to growing things. Emma considered this for a moment. Would people have a choice? About bonding, I mean? Of course. Force bonds are unstable and ultimately harmful to both partners. Only willing participants can create the deep connections necessary for true cooperation. As if summoned by their conversation, Emma's parents approached across the square, followed by Governor Mitchell and several other colonists. Emma could see from their faces that word of her proposal had spread quickly through the community. Emma, her father said, we've been hearing some interesting ideas about what you discussed with the Colonial Council last night. Governor Mitchell stepped forward. The Council has voted to accept your counter-proposal, with one modification. We want to implement it as a pilot program first, using New Haven as a test case. If the partnership works here, we'll support expansion to other human colonies. Emma felt a surge of excitement and terror in equal measure. What exactly does that mean? It means New Haven becomes humanity's first joint colony with the Astral Drakes, the governor explained. Pyrith and her people establish a permanent settlement here, sharing their knowledge and abilities while we provide resources and support. You become our first official ambassador, working with both communities to make sure the partnership succeeds. Dr. Williams joined the conversation. We've also been thinking about the defense situation. If the Void Hunters arrive in 2 days, as Pyrith warned, we'll need to show them that attacking this world means fighting both humans and dragons together. Emma looked at Pyrith. Are your people ready for that kind of fight? We have been preparing for this fight for 50 years. The ancient dragon replied. The question is whether your people are ready to stand with us. Robert Walsh stepped forward. Governor, I've been farming this land my whole life, and my father before me. If dragons can help us grow crops that feed both our peoples while keeping us safe from threats we never even knew existed, then I say we're ready to try. Emma's mother Beth nodded in agreement. Emma's been caring for Spark for months, and look what's happened to our farm, to our whole community. If that's what cooperation looks like, then I think we'd be fools to pass up this chance. One by one, the other colonists voiced their support. Emma realized that these were people who had already taken huge risks by leaving Earth to build new lives on an alien world. They understood better than most that sometimes survival required embracing change rather than fearing it. Pyrath's bioship began to change as they spoke, sections of its hull flowing and reshaping themselves to create new openings and compartments. From these openings emerged more dragons, 12 juveniles like Spark, though at different stages of development, and 3 more adults, though none as ancient or large as Pyrath herself. Emma stared in amazement as she realized she was looking at the entire surviving population of the astral drakes. 15 individuals, the remnant of a species that had once numbered in the millions. "This is everyone?" she asked. "Everyone who survived the destruction of our colony ship," Pyrath confirmed. 16 counting my child, the last of our kind, carrying the genetic diversity necessary to rebuild our species if we can find safety and suitable partners. Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling over her like a mantle. These magnificent beings had placed their trust in a 17-year-old farm girl and her small agricultural colony. The partnership she was proposing could literally determine whether the astral drakes survived as a species. But as she looked around at her community, farmers and mechanics, teachers and storekeepers, people who had built successful lives through hard work and cooperation, Emma felt a growing confidence that they could make this work. "Then let's get started," she said. "We have a colony to build and void hunters to defeat." As if responding to her words, Spark threw back his head and produced a sound Emma had never heard before, a deep, resonant call that seemed to make the air itself vibrate with possibility. The other dragons joined in, creating a harmony that spoke of hope and determination and the promise of something entirely new. Above them, the first void hunter ships appeared as dark specks against the morning sky, but Emma was no longer afraid. Humanity and the astral drakes would meet this threat together, and from that meeting would emerge something the galaxy had never seen before: the Drake-human Concordat, protectors of worlds and defenders of life itself. The farm girl, who had saved one orphaned dragon, was about to help both their species become legends.